Welcome to this week's episode of Two Bitches and a Broom podcast. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to dive into when your circle changes. What does that mean? So, when your circle changes, as we're continuing on in the ascension process and development and how all those things happen, one thing I know that I can say I really didn't become aware of until I experienced it was the shift in your personal life and your circle, right? Did you ever hear about that, like forewarning kind of thing when you started out?
Um, my mentor told me this was the only preparation that I had. That which is not meant for you will fall away. And I don't have the Native American accent that made it sound super cool.
Right,
But,
right.
and I was young. I was so young and naive. And I'm like, okay, cool beans.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that meant like people I was going to love,
Well,
care about.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I had
you
no
don't think
idea.
about that. You
No.
don't, and I think I just told somebody this actually yesterday. We tend to compartmentalize, aspects of our life, and especially like as practitioner, right? You're a practitioner, but then your personal life is kind of just here, and your circle just is like off limits, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Hmm.
And when you are moving through your ascension and kind of going through, that's actually not off limits.
Yeah.
And I feel like I I didn't become aware of it until I actually went through it.
Hmm.
And that was really hard. That was, if you're rebellious like me, you fight against it because there's a way you can make it work. There's a way that it can
Sure.
happen, you know.
Sure.
And I think over time, just hearing other people's experiences, in development and stuff like that, we all kind of fell into that same category of thinking that your personal circles don't really count when it comes to
Yeah.
ascension, right?
Yeah.
You could still figure it out. You could still make it happen. um, and no, yeah, no, spirit don't care.
No.
If they're not a vibrational match, I always say, like, if you can't keep within my radar, uh, then spirit's going to adjust that anyways, right? Because then
Yeah.
you have a choice. You can
Yeah.
still continue to entertain it and stunt your own growth,
Absolutely.
or you can choose to just allow that to happen naturally and kind of follow that guidance. Because how many times, and I'm sure um, there has to be others that listen to this or come across this, that we've paused our own growth because we were resisting letting go,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I've had a lot of friends along my journey, you know, um, when I was in my 20s and 30s, just a lot of just really wonderful, fabulous humans came into my, personal sphere of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And I really did not take much stock into what he said.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I had found that um, for different reasons, not that there's the same reason everybody, but sometimes it was just moving, sometimes it was growing apart.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they were, moving on in a completely different direction in their life than I was. And those I kind of like, okay, that happens. But when it was like people who were, metaphysical
Mm-hmm.
and they're falling away, that's when I was like,
Yeah.
what am I literally, what am I doing wrong?
Mm-hmm.
You know, why would this
Right.
happen? And I specifically remember going to my mentor, and we were having, a session, what I call a session. And he more or less was like, what the hell's wrong with you today? Um, and I had said, uh, this friend of mine no longer would communicate with me in any way. I was like, I was completely ghosted.
Mm-hmm.
And I could not figure out why. And the way he explained it to me made so much sense to me. And it was very much like what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
If my vibration is here and this person's vibration is down here,
Mm-hmm.
how can they stay in my reality? How can I keep moving forward?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I stay with this person, I've either got to drag them with my energy, I have
Mm-hmm.
to drag them with me, or I have to leave them behind so I can continue to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can make the choice to do more worldly things that will put me in the same frequency as that person. And then we will have a beautiful, flourishing relationship. And when he said that,
Oh.
I was like, what?
I like the way he put it though, because
Yeah,
that is also another choice. You can do
yeah,
more worldly things
yeah, yeah,
and you can meet them and be whatever it is, whatever that looks
yeah.
like for you.
And, she was she was just a really wonderful person, really good person, but she was um like had a lot of personal things in her life that was going on um that were not good, that
Mm-hmm.
were not vibrationally good for her.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
repeatedly continued to make those choices. So I
Yeah.
understood from that perspective when he explained it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you always have a choice. You always,
Yeah.
always have a choice. And when he explained it to me in that way, it was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I will always choose the path to ascend as high as
Sure.
I can possibly go.
Right. Right.
Um, and I want to say somewhere around my 30s, middle 30s, is when I started actually having issues with my spouse, you know? And I'm like, holy shit, I never even fathomed my actual marriage could
Mm-hmm.
fall away, you know?
Yeah.
And that was something that I definitely was concerned about, for sure.
Yeah.
For
That's
sure.
a big one. I know. I guess maybe because I just had it, I had the first level of, or maybe it was just my way of accepting it, right? Because I just don't swallow anything that I'm given. And so uh, I was like, okay, yeah, sure, of course, those that aren't intended for you will fall away from you. And I only had it in my head of just, those ones that are just those takers of energy that are just there simply because they're drawn to your light, kind of ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't and then when it happened for others that are not categorized in that way of relationship, and that, again, they're genuine people, they're good people, they have a good heart and all that stuff, but it's just a matter of fact of the vibration that they're in based off the choices that they're making. And they could be a fantastic, loving, heart-centered, intended person, but continue, like your friend, to continue to make these choices that kept them stuck in their position. you know that part was the one that was hard for me to, I guess, come to terms with
Sure.
and accept,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, it really is just that. It doesn't matter the the heart and soul of that individual, the history that you have, all of these things. So that's another thing that I find people get kind of stuck up on. And I did, we have so much history. We've built up, there's that sense of duty and obligation to this
Sure.
person. And again, this person is an amazing person, but they choose to walk this path that is keeping their own self stuck, really,
Mhm.
And I think, I don't know, I don't remember. I think maybe it was you that told me this a long time ago about, focusing on your own home, like your own foundation, and like
Yeah.
spirits, the landscape, right? And I never forgot that. And I tell people that too. If you focus on inside of your house and your own foundation, everybody else is just decoration in your landscape, right?
Mhm.
And landscape changes.
Yeah.
Spirit's your gardener. So
Yeah.
let spirit do the gardening, kind of thing. And I never forgot that, but for whatever reason, it made so much sense. It kind of switched something in my brain.
Mhm.
So now from that point, I'm just like, la-di-da, everybody's just landscape,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
It is true though.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think as human beings, we want to hold on to things. And we've said
Mm-hmm.
this before in another episode, but sometimes what we want to hold on, we don't realize is actually holding us back,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
that can be relationships and people.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
um, so what my rule of thumb is, what I have noticed, what I have come to be aware of,
Mm-hmm.
is that people who are supporting your path, people who, regardless of if they believe in what you do, as long
Mm-hmm.
as they support you,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be around. They're going to stick
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
They're going to absolutely stick with you. And everybody else is fair game. That's the reality.
That
Everybody
is
else is
true.
fair game,
That is true. Those that, even if, like, I know I went through the same thing too with my husband, of at one point through the process, I really was like, oh shit.
Yeah,
And I panicked because I was like, are you kidding me? Like,
yeah,
this is disrupting everything,
absolutely.
everything, right? And we had a conversation about proceeding on my path and kind of just where we're headed, and stuff in relationship. And he is that kind of person to where he said, I don't understand anything. I understand a little bit, but not a whole lot. And I may not ever fully understand, but I support you and I want you to be successful in whatever you choose, right? Kind of thing. So yeah, after that, it kind of eased and I calmed down a little bit, because I was just like, oh my God, if this conversation doesn't go good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we actually, in my own belief, we hit a pretty rough
Mm-hmm.
phase. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose this relationship. And I remember having
Mm-hmm.
a conversation with him that, and he's very much like your spouse. And I had said, if you are not supporting me and what I am here to do, then
Mm-hmm.
you are in my way. So you either are standing in the doorway,
Mm-hmm.
blocking what could be, or you're in
Mm-hmm.
here, but you have to decide one or the other, because where it's at right now is not working for me.
Yeah. Well, it brought everything up too within that, the, at least in my experience, the dynamic in the relationships. So any kinks that we had to work out all kind of surfaced at that time too. And that's really what, I mean,
Absolutely.
you know, I'm not always the nicest with words.
Yeah.
But it was just that of like, once I committed, that's it. That's,
Yeah.
you
I'm
know.
very much the same way. Very much. And it wasn't a matter of, um, and I even said that, like, I absolutely unconditionally love my husband. He's a wonderful, fantastic human being. And I said these words, but I may
Mhm.
have to love you over here while you're over there, you know?
Mm.
One of our conversations is what I had said. And the reality is, um, everybody is fair game if they're not
Mhm.
supporting your path.
Mhm.
And that's not a bad thing. And once I really embraced the knowledge of, I really do only want people around me
Mhm.
that support me. Why would I settle for anything less? Why would I
Right,
want to
right.
keep anything less than that?
True.
You
Yeah.
know? And once that kind of hit home and I got out of the lack mentality, that means I'm taking a loss or a hit or the universe is not working with me.
Mhm.
No, the universe was definitely looking out for me, going, hey,
Mhm.
find your
Mhm.
value and add tax, lady. What are you doing? You know?
Right. Yeah. That's a really good point that you're bringing up, though, is we're trying to hold so hard onto these relationships for whatever reason, right?
Sure.
Whatever reason that you have. But in all actuality, it is stemming from that lack mentality, because
Yeah.
you're perceiving it as you're losing
Yeah.
something, you're losing this person, when in reality, just like you said, they're not intended to continue forward with you, and you're only making space for another who is intended, that does support your path, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a really, really excellent point. I really like that, because
Yeah.
that is a shift in perspective. And I know, I think for me, once you gave me that kind of house analogy,
Mhm.
I took that and ran with it. I put it on a sticker. I put it right here. I was like, that's my motto forever.
And
But
it's a wonderful, I mean, if you really
yeah.
see yourself as that, like, I bet if you look back to when you were in your 20s, you're probably like, silly girl, you could have chose
Hmm.
so much better. You know what I
Oh,
mean? I know
absolutely.
I could.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know?
And I've told some people this too, of just think of, especially those ones that, as not even just as practitioners, but just as sensitive to energy, gifted souls, when we feel, especially the feelers, right? You feel the need of somebody else. How many times have you allowed somebody to stay in your playground, who's just running around, messing your stuff up,
Mhm.
dirtying everything, but you are still allowing them to be there because you feel their need, you see the potential, you see behind the curtain.
Yeah.
That's not going to change their choice, though,
Yeah.
right?
And I think that that's a big one. I think
Mm-hmm.
people do that all the time. They're not in love with who that, and I don't mean just romantically, I
Right,
mean
right.
any relationship.
Yeah.
They're not in love with the soul of that person, of who they are. They're in
Mm-hmm.
love with the idea that they have
Mm-hmm.
created of what they could be,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people romanticize even purely platonic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
They romanticize it, and oh, they're so wonderful, and oh, they're always there for me, and oh, well, was that person a sounding board so you could trauma dump on them daily? Because that's not a really mutually beneficial
Right.
relationship.
Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's not good for you nor them. And that's why the universe tore that away from you, because that's not good for you, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, when that, because kind of around this was a long time ago, but kind of around that time frame where this part of ascension and truly walking your path really started to kind of settle in, there was someone who I had that experience, and I learned the hard way that spirit's going to get that point to you one way or the other.
Sure.
Right? One way or the other, it's going to come.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. And it was just that, where I, like you said, I sure absolutely romanticize because I see the potential. I know that, oh, they're just having a rough time right now. All the justifications that you can make, I was making them. And it got to the point where I felt like I was going to explode, because all the signs were there, all the nudges were there, but I kept just, no, it's because it's going to be okay. It's because of this, that, and the other thing. And yeah, it got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. And I had to start creating of course, that was way back when I really didn't have established boundaries either, because, you're feeling the need and seeing the potential and all that nonsense.
Mhm.
So, you know, even then, spirit was still making their point and still showing all of these things. And I was still very much hearing, how do you like having your energy siphoned like that so much? How does that feel? You
Mhm.
know, and even though they're walking this path and they're having all of these things happen, they're still choosing to do that.
Sure.
Again, you're still letting them run around, run amok in your playground.
Yep.
And how's that feel?
Yeah.
How is that affecting your family? How does that affecting your husband and your life and all of these things, right? It really was like, yeah, it got really intense just in the realizations for me, before I was like, you know what? Okay, no, I
Yeah.
can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that if people would really look at themselves a as a human being, every connection that you have, every intimate, personal connection you have. And again, I'll repeat, not just romantic, but
Mm-hmm. All across the board.
yeah, every connection that you have with people, you have an energetic cord connected to that person.
Mm-hmm.
So you are exchanging energy with that person every time you communicate, every time you text, email, every time you take pictures together, every time you go out with one another, every time you converse, you're exchanging that energy. So take a good look at your circle and ask yourself, do I really want some of their energy? Do I
Mm-hmm.
really want to share space with that energy? And if the answer is even a hesitation, that's a no.
Right, right.
And expect that person to fall away from you.
Mm-hmm.
If you are resistant, in my experience, in my knowledge, and what I have come to know is the more resistant you are, the more difficult and painful it will be.
Mm-hmm.
And the universe will continue to test you with similar individuals to see, did you learn? Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
Do you get it? So, make sure you get it the first time of why that relationship fell away from you and how it wasn't serving you. So you don't
Mm-hmm.
find yourself in a similar pattern in the future. And you can recognize it in the future and choose better for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Most definitely have had those experiences of, I endeavor to never
Yeah. I think we all have.
I endeavor to never be as hard-headed as I was that time.
Yeah.
Not saying that the hard-headedness completely went away, but
Sure. Sure.
slowly but surely. But it really got to the point, I think, when I committed myself to walking my path, really, of like, okay, this is a thing. Let's see where it takes me. Obviously, it's not going anywhere. It's still showing up, kind of thing. And from that point forward, it really was, I truly need to start adopting this. And it was just allowing myself to entertain the concept and thought of each person has their own choice. The whole, if they can't maintain within your radar, that they're simply just meant to be in another one, that's
Mhm.
okay. That's okay too. And I think people too think, I've noticed, people tend to think that your circle shifting means only the bad ones that will
Yeah,
that will fall away.
I
That,
agree.
no, they're only like, every time I have this conversation when this happens, because anytime I'm walking someone through the foundation and through their ascension and the onion layer of shedding, I always kind of throw that out there, just forewarning, all will start to shift.
Sure.
And it always ends up being, the thought process goes just, oh yeah, the bad ones will go away, the energy suckers, the energy vampires, and everything. I'm like, nope,
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 absolutely not.
simply a vibrational match.
Yep.
So,
And I think something important to talk about too is, at least for me, I question, why did I attract this person?
mm,
Why did I attract this person into my
yeah,
playground? You know,
yeah.
what happened? So don't beat yourself up. A lot of times people come into our reality to either, we are constantly, let me restart by saying, we are constantly, I am teaching you and you are teaching me in
Mm-hmm.
every single interaction. You are both the
Mm-hmm.
student and the teacher in every interaction.
All the time. Yeah.
Yes. So sometimes people come into our sphere of reality to show us something, teach us something, and we are teaching them something and
Mm-hmm.
showing them something.
Mm-hmm.
And that old saying is true. Sometimes it's for a season,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's much longer.
Yeah.
But regardless, there's always a reason. And it doesn't mean you did anything wrong or you're
Mm-hmm.
doing anything wrong. It's
Mm-hmm.
just what was needed. It was a lesson that was needed
Mm-hmm.
in order for you to continue on your path. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it.
That's very true. That's why I like the kind of, um, mindset of the student seat. You
Yeah.
know, like, I roll around in a student seat all the time. Whatever you're intended to learn for yourself by our interaction, that's none of my business.
Mhm.
That's what that's what God's gonna transfer
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
So if I maintain a student seat, I can always just look at everything, and it kind of helps to, again, to ease off. I found, just if this helps somebody, great, that it kind of eases off that sense of obligation and, investment in relationships in that way, like getting super attached and,
Sure.
again, romanticizing, getting stuck on the potential of of that student seat. So, wow, isn't that's interesting. What am I taking in from this? I'm evolving every day, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like, yeah, I feel like this is something that needs to be talked about, because it's not only the perceived bad ones that are going to fall away. There are going to be ones that don't have that problem, but also just aren't a vibrational match for you
Right.
any longer.
Right.
And that's okay too. That's okay.
Absolutely.
You know, I think people have the wrong idea, generally, the wrong idea stuck in their head when it comes to this part of ascension. And just like we've talked about too, personal relationships, marriages, partnerships, also come on the board for question, but the fantastic thing is, I feel like at least I've recognized through the process is, especially with like spouse or, personal partnerships, there's always that opportunity and potential for growth. If I'm sharing, because I've noticed, like, I don't know about you, but I've noticed even just through the years, just both of us being open and accepting of each other's, again, supporting each other's path. He may not understand it to the extent that I do, but there's little tidbits of time through the process over the years where I notice he gets things or he questions things or understands, and I feel like that's something that was also a little bit not frustrating, but concerning of mine, of like, how am I gonna maintain this relationship, even close friendships, right, that aren't metaphysical, and understand each other and communicate. Because I don't know if you're like me, but I feel like I need everybody to understand me. You got to understand what I'm saying, how I'm saying it, and everything like that. And that myself adjusted as I went through this process too, with your circle, and somebody just told me yesterday also, I can't talk to very many people about this kind of stuff because nobody's going to really understand.
I hear that every day.
Yeah,
Every day.
like,
Yeah.
there's no one I can really talk to who's going to get it or understand it. And that really made me think, wow, well, yeah, I kind of went through that too, where I thought that everyone needed to fully understand completely. And no, it's more so about the supporting, like you said, then.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I think if you approach it from a space of, again, I 100% am trusting in universal divine intention, whatever that is for you. And you just embrace like, I don't have every person that comes up to me, I don't go, oh no, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to get close to you because I'm going to lose you. No, I'm not going to do that either. You have, I mean, it's an interesting dynamic. In order to have an authentic relationship, you have to be authentically vulnerable in that relationship. And that's the only way you're really, truly experiencing it. So this isn't meant to deter you in any way, shape, or form from having wonderful, close, committed relationships with people. But to be aware that if it does, for whatever reason, fall away from you, that you can go, I'm still very grateful for that interaction, whether good, bad, or indifferent, however you may view that. That there was a reason behind all of it, and be grateful for that lesson and that experience with that person for whatever time you may have had.
Yeah, because every interaction, and I feel like a broken record when I say this, I say it a lot to people, every interaction brings something of value to your table.
Sure.
Every single one, right? So wouldn't there naturally be gratitude for the value that's brought to your table? And it's like, I like to think, and I feel this for my own self of, I show up in my authentic truth. How you receive is going to be how you receive. That's not my business. And, I still show up in my authentic truth in every single interaction. And, if something beautiful blossoms from it, again, if you're for a reason or a season, okay, I don't know, man, I'm just here for a fun time, not a long time.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
life's too short, life's too short to sweat the small stuff kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, just be appreciative and grateful of every single interaction, no matter what it transpires to,
Sure.
because life's too short.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think, for whoever's listening and listening or watching this, and are too going through this process of your circle shifting, just remember that, it's merely a vibrational match. It's merely those that are maintaining, again, in your playground, serving your playground, supporting your playground. And just because it falls away, if it is something that falls away for you, doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing or you did anything wrong or anything of the sort. We beat ourselves up so much about it.
Oh, absolutely. I think,
No, it's just you're moving.
yeah, absolutely. And I think any woman of middle age, right? She can
Mm-hmm.
probably, or even in 25, right? She can probably look back on her romantic relationships and see the improvement in the partners she has
Mm-hmm.
picked. If
Right,
you start
right.
at the very beginning and you move to now, she could probably go, oh, I kept picking better and better. And that's kind of what the universe is doing. It's training us to choose better and
Mm-hmm.
better for those who support us around us,
Mm-hmm.
to choose better for ourselves, because
Mm-hmm.
that energy, every single energy that is in your sphere of reality is influencing you, whether
Mm-hmm.
you admit it or not, vibrationally, visually by color, audibly by what you take in,
Mm-hmm.
and what you are around.
Yep.
So all of that is influencing the direction and projection of your
Mm-hmm.
divine path.
Yep.
So if it's not
Everything
unsupportive,
is consuming.
yeah.
Everything is consuming. Yeah.
And if it's not supporting your path, the universe at some point is going to go, wow, they're, like, here's your path, and you're way over here. The universe is going to give you a good hard kick to get you back over here. And sometimes that can be losing a whole group of friends.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that means losing your job, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe that means moving. That can be a lot of things that are falling away from you. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
Because you need
Yeah.
a whole new setup because you are so far off your path.
Mm-hmm.
And other times it can be a little blip. It can be one individual. So,
Yeah.
just keep that in mind. There is no right or wrong, in my opinion. There is no good or
Right.
bad. Everything is choices. And even the universe is saying choose. You get to choose. Do you want to lower that vibration and be met into a wonderful blossoming relationship? Or do you want to keep moving forward? Do you want to
Mm-hmm.
do you want to actually complete what you came here to do, that you said you wanted to get done?
Right?
You
Because
know?
you signed up for this.
Yeah, you signed
Let
up
me
for it.
remind everybody, you chose this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, swallow that pill. You chose this.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think this is something that I feel like is a message that is needed for people, especially right now, going through these massive shifts in awareness and awakening and all of that stuff. And especially those I notice who are becoming more open to developing and, evolving into practitioner and all of these things where, yeah, your circle will most definitely shift. And I feel like at some level, wouldn't you always expect it to shift if you're growing, as though so should your environment, you know?
We would hope. Yeah.
We would hope. Yeah. So I know it's like this is a tough one, going through the beginning stages of, your awakening and ascension. You withdraw and cocoon and, you kind of cut everybody off, so to speak. because you're going through that, and then you start to emerge, and then, then now here we are with friends shifting, relationship shifting, jobs, careers, hobbies, things like that. But it's all part of the process, and it really is truly just continuing. If you're choosing to continue to move forward in your ascension, this is the progressional element of it, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
perfection is an illusion. We just get pretty good every time.
Absolutely.
Every level, we just get pretty good.
Absolutely.
I get pretty damn good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's nothing innately bad or wrong or something you have done that has, brought this about. Just part of your path, man. Just part of your path.
Yeah, that's it. So I'm just ride the wave. Any final thoughts on circles changing with ascension?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think the only thing I would encourage you to do, instead of mourning the loss of, just stop and reflect and be in gratitude for the experiences that you did have, even if in retrospect you're like, that's so negative. You know what I mean? It still taught you something. So just reflect and keep that in mind. So future individuals, you will recognize that when you come across it.
Right. Because you get pretty good every time, every level. I think that's perfect. So I think we'll wrap this up. Thank you all for watching and listening on whichever platform that you are. We appreciate all shares. If you find this helpful and you resonate with it, or others that do or will find this helpful, we appreciate the energetic exchange of sharing, liking, and subscribing, and leaving us your comments and experiences and stories. Thanks.
I think we're
cool.
Right. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.